So this article came out not too long ago talking about how Sega wants to revive some of its older franchises, and that really got me thinking. I mean, I love Sega, and would argue that though their last console, the Sega Dreamcast, didn't do so well, they really hit a creative peak during this time period, filled with all sorts of really creative and innovative titles. And while sure, many of these franchises have been seemingly dead for at least a decade, I think that with some love and care, they could come back bigger than ever. Therefore, allow me to hit you with my list, in no particular order, of 7 Sega franchises that deserve a revival, as well as the occasional note on some new stuff that these games could bring. Number 7, Sega Bass Fishing. So this first one might seem like an odd choice, but trust me when I say that Sega Bass Fishing is a pretty beloved game and usually shows up in lists of top Dreamcast games. Though an arcade fishing game where you attempt to catch fish with different lures may not sound too exciting, the different playable stages, fluid fish movement, and objective of catching a certain weight of fish within a certain time limit actually made for a pretty fun game that takes some skill to master. Throw in some stuff like current gen graphics, the inclusion of more stages, and being able to customize gear such as lures and fishing rods, and I could easily see this game being a hit in the present day. Number 6, Jet Set Radio. Jet Set Radio, or as it was known in the United States, Jet Grind Radio, is a platforming / skating game starring a gang of rollerblading graffiti artists named the GGs, who not only compete with rival gangs for turf, but fight for the freedom to express themselves in the police state of Tokyo-to as well. Though the objective of a typical stage is quite simple, usually involving tagging every graffiti spot in each area before the timer runs out, the awesome soundtrack, simple arcade-style gameplay, and stylish use of cel-shaded graphics have made it a fan favorite. While I do think that a sequel with similar gameplay would do great, especially with the hole left behind by series such as the Tony Hawk games, I can still picture some ways to change things up. For instance, I could see this game benefiting from stuff like a large open world map, the ability to customize your character, scores for doing tricks, and maybe even some multiplayer options. Number 5. Space Channel 5. Next on the list is Space Channel 5, a rhythm game starring a galactic TV reporter named Ulala, who dances through colorful environments in an effort to defeat aliens, rescue hostages, and keep her TV ratings up. Gameplay for this one is once again quite simple, revolving around dance-offs or shootouts, during which the player must repeat commands spoken by the opponent, such as up, down, left, right, and shoot, in time to the rhythm. The challenge, of course, comes from keeping up with the various speeds and string of commands there is to follow as the game progresses. Filled with colorful aesthetics and a quirky style, it may sound like a really weird game, but hey, that's part of the appeal. As for how to potentially change things up, as @Knickknack the Squirrel, who I follow over on Twitter, pointed out, what about making it an action-adventure comedy game? While the series is known for being rhythm games, I can actually totally see this, as I think that as long as the game is quirky and has dancing as one of the various options as you run around, it could work. Number 4, Panzer Dragoon. While this franchise deviates a bit from others on the list, seeing as how it originates from the Sega Saturn era instead of the Dreamcast, I still think it deserves a revival, and I definitely know it has a fan base. Famous for their beautiful soundtrack, interesting post-apocalyptic plotlines, and surreal science fiction atmosphere, the majority of the games are rail shooters that follow the story of a lone hero or heroine fighting an evil empire while riding a dragon. As for the third entry in the series, which stands out for instead being an RPG, this game has been praised for its very unique art direction, interesting combat engine, and engaging story. But when it comes to how to revive this one, I feel like that's pretty easy, seeing as how a new game could go in several directions. It could go the route of an RPG, an action-adventure game with dragon riding segments, or maybe even just a new and improved rail shooter. Regardless, as long as a new game features the same lore and universe, I think it'll be fine. Number 3, Super Monkey Ball. Another franchise that deviates a bit, this time we look at a series from an era after the fall of Sega as a console creator. Super Monkey Ball is a series of platform games whose core gameplay features a monkey inside a ball, rolling through many kinds of stages to get to the goal. However, instead of taking control of the monkey itself, Super Monkey Ball has you move the character around by tilting the world, with challenge coming from the various obstacles and puzzles in your way. I think that this one would be really easy to bring back, seeing as how the Nintendo Switch and PS4 have motion controls, although I guess the game could be played without them as well. Although I can't really quite come up with anything new for this one, I think that a new game with a robust single player mode, as well as multiplayer options such as previous party modes, would make for a pretty good return. Number 2, Crazy Taxi. What do you get when you mix taxi driving, checkpoint racing, and music by The Offspring? Well, you get Crazy Taxi, of course, a balls to the wall, over the top game in which your goal is to race around the city picking up passengers and dropping them off as quickly as possible before time runs out. Now, while I'm sure that this one is one of those games that would do great nowadays even without any changes made to it, I can definitely see some room for growth. I mean, just tell me you wouldn't want to play a new game with current gen graphics, destructible environments, a brand new soundtrack, and all sorts of unlockables such as characters, vehicles, and maps. Number 1, Samba de Amigo. Long before Guitar Hero was a thing, there was Samba de Amigo, a rhythm game in which players use controls shaped like maracas to groove along to Latin pop music. In this case, as a song played, the player would shake the maracas at high, middle, or low heights with the beat of the music, or occasionally struck poses with the maracas held in various positions. Due to its really unique gameplay and bright, vivid colors, it is still considered one of the best rhythm/dance games in some circles. Now I know this one might be a bit hard to bring back since rhythm games have all but gone extinct in recent years, but I think if it were to be brought to the Nintendo Switch and the Joy-Cons were to be used, it could do quite well. Not only could it be seen as a pretty cool, quirky title, but it might even be seen as a new type of rhythm game to fill in the gap left behind by all the band simulators. So there you have it, folks, 7 Sega franchises that I think deserve a revival. Of course, with Sega being very quiet with just what they meant by that news story, I guess we'll just have to wait and see which one, if any of their franchises, finally get a chance to make their big comeback. Let me know in the comments below what franchises you'd like to see make a triumphant return, and maybe even what new things you'd like to see in a new game. I hope you all enjoyed my video, but if not, everything you saw is just an opinion. And remember, don't take anything I say too seriously. After all, I'm just a wannabe reviewer. Thanks for watching.